Hi, this is a video to explore the Bellwork poem Mosquitoes. So I'm going to let you listen to the poem and then I'll spend a few minutes going over it myself and talking you through the questions. Of course, if you haven't done these on your own, I hope that you will. I think the activity is going to be much more educational and enriching for you if you try to do that. And I always encourage students in class to remember that the only wrong answers to questions like this are no answers and blank answers. As long as you have spent some time wrestling with the literature and thinking about it, then your responses are probably going to be valid. So here's the poem, read by the author.
Mosquitoes. When my father wanted to point out galaxies or Andromeda or the Seven Sisters, I would complain of mosquitoes and the yawning moon quiet in the slow summer air. All I wanted was to go inside our cold house and watch MTV or paint my nails. What does a 15-year-old girl know of patience? What did I know of the steady turn of full moon valleys cresting into focus? Standing there in our driveway with him, I smacked my legs, my arms, my face, while I waited for him to find whatever pinhole of light he wanted me to see. But at night, when I'd wash my face, I would find bursts of blood and dried bodies slapped into my skin. I'd complain at breakfast about how I can't do this anymore, Dad. I have more homework now, Dad. I can't go to school with bites all over my face now, Dad. And now I hardly ever say no. He has plans to go stargazing with his grandsons, and for once, I do not protest. I know one day he won't ask me, he won't be there to show me the rings of Saturn glowing gold through the eyepiece. He has plans, and I know he won't be there to show me how the moons of Jupiter jump if you catch them on a certain night. I know one day I will look up into the night sky, searching. I know the mosquitoes will still have their way with me, and I know one day my father won't hear me complain. Oh, mosquitoes.
Oops, sorry about that. So I'm so glad to find the author herself reading the poem. Her voice kind of surprised me. And if you take the time to look this up on YouTube, I think you'll be surprised by how young she is when she reads this poem. So it starts out, the speaker in the poem, who I think this one time can probably be identified with the author. This speaker in the poem is talking about her father's hobby of looking at the night sky, of galaxies and constellation and the stars. And of course there's wonder and miracle and just the mythology of the universe and that experience. But she doesn't want to hang out with her dad. She wants to go into the cool house. She wants to watch TV. She wants to paint her nails. And I love that statement. What does a 15-year-old girl know of patience? That was certainly applicable to me when I was 15. So I kind of find the humor in it now. And the speaker goes on to say, she's standing in the driveway with her father and she's pretty much bored. We can make that inference, and ready to go. And then she starts smacking her legs and her arms and her face because the mosquitoes are biting her. And of course, there's all of this complaint to her father, I can't do this anymore. I can't go with you. I can't watch the night sky because these nasty mosquitoes are biting me and tearing my skin up. So there's all that protest. And then there's a shift in the poem, and the speaker says she hardly ever says no. Her dad plans to go stargazing with the grandson, and I think we can make another inference there. Perhaps that is her child. The speaker has aged. Time has passed here. And now there's this reflectiveness to it. I know one day he won't ask me, and he won't be there anymore. And then those final lines, one day I will look up into the night sky, searching. I know the mosquitoes will still have their way with me, and my father won't hear me complain. And it's kind of, it makes me pause for a second as someone who's lost a parent. It takes my breath away a little bit when I hear the end of that poem. So I'm just going to dive into the questions here. Question number 1 asks, what things do you notice about the structure of the poem? And at first glance, when you look at this poem, it does have stanzas. It has those chunks of lines in poetry. They're kind of like paragraphs in poetry. So I noticed that there are, let's see, 7, I believe, 7 stanzas to this poem. And there is some regularity to it. There's some kind of loose meter to it. I don't really see a definite rhyme scheme. When I look a little closer, I see that the stanzas, they do run into one another. So a piece of a sentence will end one stanza and then begin the next. So it just kind of has a really interesting effect of sort of rushing this poem along and carrying it over until the end, I think. There are probably some more things that you guys could tell me about that, I'm sure. There's some interesting use of punctuation. I definitely see some em dashes and some rhetorical questions in this poem. Those are things that I think you guys are getting more and more accustomed to seeing and noticing. So when I move on to question number 2, what do you notice about the language and the vocabulary in this poem? It is pretty clear. It is pretty simple. The word choices are precise, but they're not terribly elevated or terribly formal. You wouldn't have to use a dictionary to determine the meaning of any of these words. Not at all. And I think the mosquitoes in this poem are real. The speaker in the poem is definitely fretting the experience of being bitten by mosquitoes, which is definitely something that we in the South can all understand. But perhaps those mosquitoes, they invite us to maybe consider if there is a metaphor or if the mosquitoes are a symbol. You know, there is some depth to very realistic happenings in this poem, and I think we'll probably come back to that when we get to a point where we're talking about theme. Number 3 asks, why is the title of this poem important? I really want you guys as students, as readers, to be in the habit of spending some time with the title of a work, not only before you read, but also after. That's really important. And we have seen some poems that you can't understand if you don't read the title, like you'll be lost, you don't know what's going on. In this particular poem, I think the title itself is less important. The mosquitoes are the problem, and they're a thing that leads the speaker to kind of, I don't know, not focus on the moment when she's a teenager. But really, I mean, the mosquitoes are less what this poem is about. And what is more prominent is the speaker's relationship with her father and maturing and aging and coming to terms with the fact that her father won't always be there, that those things that were boring experiences when she was 15 are one day going to be something that she cannot have. So the title here is kind of evasive almost. It sets us up to think that the mosquitoes are going to be of prominence, of importance, and then we are told the story, or at least shared, we get a journey shared with us about a speaker's relationship with her father. So it's almost ironic in a way that the title is Mosquitoes, but then the poem offers so much more. Question 4, I ask you, what kinds of imagery does the poem evoke? And then I have further questions. Is it all visual? Explain. I love this poem because there are definitely some images that are visual. You know, I can see the pictures. I can certainly see the beautiful night sky and the stars and the planets. I can feel myself outside watching the stars on a summer night when the mosquitoes are out. So I can see those images, but I can hear the sounds of being outside. And I know it talks about mosquitoes, but if I'm out looking at the stars and mosquitoes are biting me, I'm probably going to hear some crickets too. And there's so much here beyond visual. there's so much that she gives us to make us feel what it's like to be outside and what it's like to have those mosquitoes biting our skin, and then, the next morning finding the burst of blood and dried bodies. That's so gross, but it's kind of real. At least it is for us here in the South. So just please keep in mind that all images are not visual, and this one does a good job with tactile images. You can actually feel some of these sensations on your skin, and I think that's really important. And that's something that we take for granted very often. When I say images, it's visual that you guys respond with. So keep in mind, images can deal with sight, they can deal with hearing, with our olfactory sense, our ability to smell, our ability to taste, and also our ability to touch. So moving on to number 5, what do you learn about the speaker in the poem? What happens to her and how does she change? Well, you learn that at the beginning of this poem, she's speaking about a time when she was 15. She was a teenager. She was very focused on trivial activities like painting her nails and watching TV and being in the cool, instead of, savoring that opportunity to spend time with her father and also to learn about something very magnificent and majestic that he was trying to share with her. So she grows up in this poem. I'm sure you've all heard, hindsight is 2020, and this is a poem written in hindsight. The speaker is looking back on her childhood and thinking about the attitudes that she had and really wishing that they had been different, and now realizing that she was taking something for granted. And now there's a fear. She has that fear that her father won't always be there. She's aware of how for granted she took him and that activity or that shared experience. So she comes to value by realizing her own fallibility or her own fault. As a child, she, as an adult, is coming to value what she has. Not only that relationship that her father has with her, but also with a new generation that is potentially her son. So number 6, what is this poem actually about? It's not really actually about mosquitoes. The mosquitoes are there, they bite, they're not fun, but more importantly, the topic or the subject matter of this poem is about that relationship, about enjoying the present with family, with your elders, learning from them, appreciating and valuing that time. And yes, I'm sorry, it does kind of say some disparaging things about youth, or at least it mentions how when she was 15, she didn't have patience, or she didn't know anything of patience, And I can definitely relate to this poem as someone who has aged a little bit and now looks back on my youth and just thinks, oh, what was I doing? What was I thinking? What was I focused on? So you guys who are younger now and who are still close to this age, you get the benefit of her wisdom here. 7, the speaker's tone. It is very nostalgic, if only I could go back, if only I could change the past. So it's nostalgic in that it kind of has a longing for the past, but also it's very earnest, it's very serious and straightforward, and a little bit regretful too. I'm sure those of you who sit with me in class and discuss this, you're gonna have some really good adjectives to add to my list here, no doubt. And then tone of course is the voice of the speaker and the emotions that the speaker is utilizing or communicating in. And then question number 8 asks you about mood. The alliterative trick is mood is how it makes me feel. That's me as a reader, so that becomes you guys. Mood is how it makes you feel. And I think really it kind of makes me feel the same way. I have that nostalgia, of course. I have some personal experiences in losing my father that make me feel that nostalgia and that sort of regret of not savoring those moments and enjoying them. Question number 9 asks you about central ideas, which central ideas you can take away from this poem. And when we're talking about literature, particularly like poetry or fictional literature, central idea and theme, those terms are so synonymous. They're often very interchangeable. When I talk about them in class, I have just very, very slight differentiation. And for central idea, it's like the facts of life that you can draw from a piece of literature. And I know that's strange when we're talking about, fiction or poetry, and we're talking about drawing facts. But in this poem, after you read it, I think you can make me some kind of heavy sentences to say things like, the concerns of the present fade. The things that we're worried about today become very trivial tomorrow. Those are facts, right? Maybe also something about, time with loved ones is very precious. Those are facts that you can draw from literature. So central ideas that will sort of resonate with you after you read this poem and think about this poem. And then theme, again, it's very closely related. Usually themes make some sort of comment on the human condition, on what it means to be you and me, what it means to be a member of the human race. So if you can shape a sentence, if you can craft a sentence that either says human or humankind or even we or us, you're usually on track with determining the themes in a piece of literature. I do think on 10 Ready, when you have to determine the theme, it's going to be multiple choice. So if you can do it this way, you are in great shape. So they're really related to central ideas, I think. You might say something for theme like, we get caught up in the trivial affairs of the present. That means we get caught up in the needing to paint our fingernails and wanting to go sit in the air conditioner. We get caught up in the trivial affairs of the present. That is something that humans do, right? We get caught up in our selfishness and our self-centeredness and our present need. You might also say something like here, as we get older, we sometimes come to appreciate those experiences with loved ones. Or as we get older, we tend to realize that we have taken these experiences for granted. We have wasted opportunities, things like that. If you can plug a we in, you are probably dealing with real themes of this poem. And there are other things here, certainly, that you could discuss and that you could tell me were correct answers for number 10. And then finally, number 11, I'm asking you to explain to me why this poem might be considered good poetry. And I hope that you'll have a variety of answers here. For me, the thing that sticks out more than anything else is that sensory experience that she creates for me. I can feel the mosquitoes, my skin itches and hurts a little bit after I read this poem. And then also there's that breathtaking view of the night sky from the first stanza or two. That is so pretty, and this poem makes me wish I could go look at that and spend some time reflecting on the stars. Another thing this poem for me does really well is it evokes that emotional response. It really makes me think about not savoring that experience, not living in the now, and taking that time with loved ones for granted. So it's kind of got a cautionary effect. It's reminding me that I don't need to do that. It's asking me to sort of change the way that I live my life so that when I go forward, I try not to take those things for granted. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that you gave me some answers first, and that this is simply enriching the thoughts that you already had. I really enjoy these little poetry analysis because it gives you an opportunity to see literature that you've never seen before and just really dig in and think about all that domain-specific vocabulary that we expect to see on our big test at the end of the year. Things like theme and tone and mood and central idea. And then all those questions about language or structure, I can see questions like that really helping you guys prepare for questions you'll see about author's choice. Why did the author do this? What effect does this stylistic choice have? So I think you're doing really good work here thinking about these pieces, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.